Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today, and I'm glad that you're able to join us. Our episodes are live and on Saturdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're going to be talking about the secrets to staying calm. In this episode, I'm going to talk about staying calm under pressure, the neuroscience behind calmness, nutritional strategies, how to be a calm person. I'm going to reveal some strategies, tips, and tricks that you can use to be a calmer person. All right, so today we're talking about being calm in stressful situations. I think this is pretty relevant given all that's going on in our daily lives. For me, it all comes down to having a day of the week to reflect on my strategy and what I'm working on. But keep in mind that while I focus my efforts on Saturday, any day of the week is a great day to assess your strategy. My strategy show continues to grow. We're available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and many, many more digital platforms. We're also available on YouTube in the video variety. You can find me on most social media platforms. My Twitter handle is @HawkinsJohn, so you can say hi there. Or go to johnmhawkins.com. That's johnmhawkins.com. And just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goals, because the best laid plans don't always work. This week I am looking for your stories. Do you have any examples of being calm under pressure? Tips or tricks? If you do, please send them to me to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And if you get those tips in, or you could even send an email in saying hi to talk@johnmhawkins.com, you'll get entered into the weekly giveaway, which is a Visa gift card and a copy of my latest book. Today we're talking about the secrets to staying calm. We're going to be talking about how top performers stay calm. We're going to talk a little bit about the neuroscience behind being calm. And we're going to talk a little bit about the nutritional element to being calm. There actually is some science to back it up behind having a good diet. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things we can do, the tips and tricks to help us be calm throughout the day and in any situation. So today we're talking about staying calm and what successful people do. Got an article here by Travis Bradberry. Travis Bradberry is somebody who covers emotional intelligence and leadership performance. And this article that I have here talks a little bit about being calm under pressure. He says the ability to manage your emotions and remain calm under pressure has a direct link to your performance. Talent Smart has conducted research with more than 1 million people, and they've found that 90% of top performers are skilled at managing their emotions in times of stress in order to remain calm and in control. That's pretty relevant for us. This show's all about personal strategy, personal development, and I know we all want to be top performers. I'll continue. He says if you've followed his work, you've read some startling research summaries that explore the havoc that stress can wreak upon one's physical and mental health. He says such as the Yale study, which found that prolonged stress causes degeneration in the area of the brain responsible for self-control. The tricky thing about stress and the anxiety that comes with it is that it's absolutely necessary emotion. He says our brains are wired such that it's difficult to take action until we feel at least some level of this emotional state. In fact, peak performance under the heightened activation that comes with moderate levels of stress. As long as the stress isn't prolonged, it's harmless. He says research from the University of California, Berkeley reveals an upside to experiencing moderate levels of stress. But it also reinforces how important it is to keep stress under control. So there was a study led by postdoctoral fellow Elizabeth Kirby found that the onset of stress entices the brain into growing new cells responsible for improving memory. However, this effect is only seen when stress is intermittent. And as soon as the stress continues beyond a few moments into a prolonged state, it suppresses the brain's ability to develop new cells. He says he thinks the intermittent stressful events are probably what keeps the brain more alert, and you perform better when you are alert, Kirby says. For animals, intermittent stress is the bulk of what they experience in the form of physical threats and in their immediate environment. She says long ago this was the case for humans, but as the human's brain evolved and increased complexity, we developed the ability to worry on events, which creates frequent experiences of prolonged stress. Besides increasing the risk of heart disease, depression, obesity, stress decreases your cognitive performance. She says, fortunately, though, unless a lion is chasing you, the bulk of your stress is subjective and under your control. Top performers have well-honed coping strategies that they employ under their stressful circumstances. This lowers their stress levels regardless of what's happening in their environment, ensuring that their stress that they experience is intermittent and not prolonged. So this is an incredibly interesting perspective from what Travis is saying here. He's saying that we all need certain levels of stress to be able to stimulate our brains to create new cells. However, if we are under too much stress, if we do not have a way to control that stress, it can start to have a degenerative effect on us as well. It's also interesting that they talk a little bit about, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but the fight or flight and how all of this ties in. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, because what happens is when we have a way to cope with these specific stresses in our everyday life. So if it's an animal being hunted by a tiger in the plains, then that animal, when they start running or they start fighting, that actually is going to help them compensate. But in our daily work situations, we can't always fight or flight. We have to sit there and we have to process it. So what happens in that respect is that we start to get into this feedback loop where we know that we have to fight or perhaps flight, but we can't do that. So our brain goes into this state of constant feedback loop whereby we then we don't know what to do. And so that's part of what we're going to be covering today is how do you go about identifying those situations that could be causing stress? And when we have those situations that come up, what is our response? And our natural response that we would have used, thousands and thousands of years ago, if we were being hunted in the Serengeti, is not something that we can do in the business world. It's not something that we can do at home with our friends and our peers. And so I think that's one of those secrets that we really want to dive into more into this show to unpack and figure out if we're not allowed to fight or flight, then what do we need to be doing strategically so that we have the ability to deal with this and reduce and become more calm? You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about the neuroscience behind calmness. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Today, we're talking about the secret to staying calm in stressful situations. Right before the break, we were talking about top performers and how they have a way of staying calm. And we were talking a little bit about how stress is needed in our lives, but that prolonged stress can wreak havoc on our minds and bodies. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about the neuroscience behind calmness. Now, keeping in mind that I am merely relaying this information. I am not an expert on neuroscience. But fortunately, I do have an article here by James Keller who focuses on the neuroscience behind remaining calm under pressure. He says the ability to keep your wits in a crisis isn't a character trait. It's a skill that you can learn in minutes. He says here that neuroscience, however, has recently revealed that remaining calm under pressure is not an inborn trait, but a skill that anybody can learn. So number one, he says, we need to understand the biochemistry behind it. He says the opposite of remaining calm is the state of fight or flight, a physiological reaction that occurs in response to a perceived harmful event, attack, or threat to survival. He says the reaction starts when two segments of your brain, called the amygdala, interpret a situation as a threat. This perception causes your brain to secrete hormones that tells your nervous system to prepare your body to take drastic action. Your breath gets short, your body floods your muscles with blood, and your peripheral vision goes away, and so forth. He says, though, that since neither fight nor flight are appropriate in business situations, your body never gets a release. Instead, your hyped-up body tells your brain, yes, this is a real threat. And you end up with your brain and body in a feedback loop. To put it colloquially, you freak out. And how many times have you been in a situation at work where you do feel threatened? You do feel that there is some sort of clear and present danger. And I suppose if this is true, that physiologically we are designed to either fight the threat or run from the threat. But in the situation where it is your boss, a superior, somebody who you cannot run away from, what do you do? And I think this really, to me, is one of those things that opened my mind in regard to this whole topic of leadership, seniority, and how these perceived threats physiologically have an impact on us. And if this is true, then this really, leads me to believe that we really need to come up with strategies, not only to deal with it from a personality traits type of perspective, but also we need to look at it physiologically. It says, in this state, chances are extremely high that you'll either remain frozen in fear, like a deer in headlights, or driven to release the pressure, you'll say something or do something stupid. And how many of us have been in that situation and done something stupid? I'll raise my hand. I've done it. So he says here, number two, we need to label the emotions. So to calm yourself and remain calm, you need to interrupt the feedback loop, which, as explained above, the fight or flight reaction begins in the brain, which the part of the brain that processes memory, interprets emotions, and makes what are often inappropriately called our gut decisions. He says it's now understood that you can reduce the fight or flight signals from your amygdala if you assign names or labels to the emotions that you're experiencing at the time. As John Pratlett, a pioneer in using neuroscience in leadership training, says, reflecting on your feelings and labeling them may assist in the calming of the amygdala, allowing you to move out of the fight and flight mode and free up energy, allowing you to think more clearly about the situation rather than worrying. So he says, number one, you need to slow your breathing. Now that you've interrupted the brain part of the feedback loop, you interrupt the body part of the feedback loop by consciously breathing slowly and deeply. Count from 1 to 10 as you inhale, and then count from 1 to 10 as you exhale. He says these deep breaths bring more oxygen into your lungs and hence into your bloodstream, which is the exact opposite of the effect of fight or flight reaction. You're basically telling your body and your brain that it's no longer necessary to increase the intensity of your fight or flight reaction. That's interesting. We need to take deep breaths, and there's a scientific reason behind it. The other thing that he says we need to do is relabel our emotions. He says at this point, you've interpreted the feedback loop at 2 levels. So in this step, you eliminate the emotion's impetus that created the fight or flight response. Great. So now he says, go through the list of emotions that you've identified in step 2 and assign them labels that are positive rather than negative. And this is extremely interesting to me. Instead of, if you feel fearful, think of it as anticipation, frustration, desire. If you're worried, there's a concern, dread, caution, flustered, excited, alarmed, curious, pressured, courted. When you relabel your emotions, you're using controllable parts of your brain to convince your amygdala that this is not a fight or flight situation, but instead a stay aware and watchful situation, or even a sit back and enjoy the situation. As you continue to breathe slowly and deeply, holding the relabeling emotions in your mind, notice the speed at which your heart is beating. You will find that it gradually returns to a normal pace and you've regained your calmness. So this is just really interesting to me, looking at the neuroscience behind it. And the thing that I'm really interested in now is this whole flight or fight. And now we've got a strategy to be able to relabel them to reduce our need for fight or flight. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about some nutritional strategies to help ease anxiety. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. My name is John Hawkins, and today we're talking about the secrets to staying calm. Talking about staying calm under pressure, the neuroscience behind calmness, nutritional strategies, and much more. We do have a weekly giveaway that you can sign up for. If you send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com, that's talk@johnmhawkins.com, you'll be entered into our weekly giveaway where you can get win a $25 Visa gift card and also a copy of my most recent book, Coach to Greatness. All right, so right before the break, we were talking about the neuroscience behind calmness, talked about relabeling what we see. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about nutritional strategies. Nutritional strategies to help ease anxiety. Got an article here by Uma Naidu. She is a contributor, and the publication is Harvard Health Publishing from the Harvard Medical School. Uma says, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States. She says that's 40 million adults, 18% of the population, who struggle with anxiety. Anxiety and depression often go hand in hand, with about half of those with depression also experiencing anxiety. Specific therapies and medication can help relieve the burden of anxiety, yet only about a third of the people suffering from this condition seek treatment. Uma says in her practice, part of what she discusses when explaining treatment options is the important role of diet in helping to maintain anxiety. And I brought this topic up because I too have noticed that based on my diet, depending on what the diet is, it can help me be calmer in certain situations. I can have more steady energy. It really gives you the ability to do all the other things that we're trying to do from a improvements perspective and working on our personal traits. And when I thought about how nutrition helps me feel better, I really wanted to emphasize the importance of nutrition in helping you get through the day, remain stress-free, be calm, those types of things. She says, in addition to healthy guidelines such as eating a balanced diet, drinking enough water to stay hydrated, and limiting or avoiding alcohol and caffeine, there are many other dietary considerations that can help relieve anxiety. For example, she says complex carbohydrates are metabolized more slowly and therefore help maintain a more even blood sugar level, which creates a calmer feeling. Well, imagine that you are at work and you do have that fight or flight response, and you change your diet to include a diet with complex carbohydrates, with whole grains, vegetables, fruits, lots of other healthier options. Imagine that just by making that one simple change, when that situation arises, you feel less like you want to fight or flight, and you feel more in control. She says also when you eat is important. She suggests not to skip meals. She says doing so may result in drops in blood sugar that can cause you to feel jittery, which may worsen under anxiety. She says the gut-brain axis is also very important, since a large percentage, about 95% of serotonin receptors, are found in the lining of the gut. Research is examining the potential of probiotics for treating both anxiety and depression. She says making these foods part of your anti-anxiety diet. She says you may be surprised to learn that specific foods have been shown to reduce anxiety. Number one, in mice, diets low in magnesium, were found to increase anxiety-related behaviors. Foods naturally rich in magnesium may therefore help a person to feel calmer, which includes leafy greens such as spinach, Swiss chard, and other sources include legumes, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. So it could just be a magnesium deficiency. I know when I take magnesium supplements, that helps me calm my muscles after a workout. What could that do for you if you are in a situation and you get anxious? It says also foods rich in zinc, such as oyster, cashews, liver, beef, and egg yolks, have also been linked to lower anxiety. Other foods include fatty fish like wild Alaskan salmon, which contain omega 3 fatty acids. There was a study completed on the medical students in 2011 where it showed that the omega 3s may help reduce anxiety. The study used supplements containing omega 3 fatty acids. Prior to the study, omega 3 fatty acid had been linked to improving depression only. Another study in the Journal of Psychiatric Research suggests a link between probiotic foods and a lowering of social anxiety. Eating probiotic-rich foods such as pickles, sauerkraut, and kefir, I think I'm saying that right, was linked to fewer symptoms. Asparagus, known widely to be a healthy vegetable based on research, the Chinese government approved the use of asparagus extract as a natural functional food and beverage ingredient due to its anti-anxiety properties. Foods rich in B vitamins, such as avocados and almonds. These feel-good foods spur the release of neurotransmitters, such as serotonin and dopamine. They are a safe and easy first step in managing anxiety. How interesting is this? She says anxiety is thought to be correlated with a lowered total antioxidant state. It stands to reason, therefore, enhancing your diet with foods rich in antioxidants may help the symptoms of anxiety disorders. She cites also a 2010 antioxidant study that talked about 3,100 foods, spices, and herbs that were designed to be used as antioxidants. She also says try beans, dried small red, pinto, black, red, or kidney, fruits such as apples, Gala, Granny Smith, Red Delicious, berries like blackberries, strawberries, cranberries, raspberries, nuts, walnuts, pecans, vegetables, artichokes, kale, spinach, beets, and broccoli. And spices with both antioxidant and anti-anxiety properties may include turmeric, containing the active ingredient curcumin with ginger. So as you can see, there's a number of different things we can do, not only with respect to how we process the data, but also our diet and nutrition can help. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to go through the secrets to staying calm. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, if you're just joining us, thanks for joining us. Very happy to be here today, and I'm glad that you could join us. My Strategy episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're talking about the secrets to staying calm. In this episode, we're talking about staying calm under pressure, the neuroscience behind calmness, nutritional strategies, how to be a calm person, and the secrets to calming your nerves. We'd love to get your thoughts on this show, so please feel free to send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And if you do send us an email, you can be entered into our weekly giveaway, where we're giving away a copy of my most recent book, Coach to Greatness, and you will also get a Visa gift card along with that. And the book's got terrific reviews. It's got 4.7 out of 5 on Amazon. All right. We were talking right before the break about nutritional strategies. In this segment, I want to pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about how we have secrets to staying calm. So we've talked about what top performers do, the neuroscience behind it, nutritional strategies. And now I want to talk about some tips that you can use at home or at work. Got an article here from the Positivity blog. It says how to calm your nerves and stay cool. It was written by Heinrich Edberg. All right, so he says stress is rising. You start to feel frustration with the situation you're in, angry, or maybe sad, and you just want to pack up and go home. But at the same time, you also know that you need to calm your nerves and stay cool. So to be able to think clearly, to not overreact, make the wrong decision, or not say the wrong thing in the moment of anger, overwhelm, or confusion. And he says, like you, many of us have been placed in situations like this. In fact, everybody's been placed in a situation like this. So we're no stranger to it. So this week, he wants to share his habits and strategies that you can use. So let's go through these and see how we can use these strategies. Number one, he says, just breathe. If you have the time in a situation then that you're in, he recommends sitting down for 1-2 minutes and focus only on this air going slowly in and out, nothing less. And I think that aligns with what we learned in the segment about the neuroscience behind calmness. So that one is a good one. Then think of the consequences. So if you're in a situation where you need to reply to someone, then follow up with a few deep breaths while thinking about the consequences. If you reply with overly tough words, or you back down instead of calmly standing your ground. That kind of is the fight or flight response and how we handle it. So I think that's a good one. Remember, it's not always about you. This is a good strategy too, because so many times if you're feeling the pressure of fighting or flighting, what if you can change the context or change it, and rather than you being put in this situation, it's the company that's being put into this situation. It's the customer. And when you can change the focus of what you're doing to something besides you, then that's going to give you the ability to not be as stressed about it, because it's not you that needs to fight or flight. You can help the company, you can help that person, but it's not directly you. Take it one small step at a time. I think that's a good one. Question your perspective. So if you're getting really frustrated, angry, or sad about a situation, then look at it from your perspective. And I've done podcasts on perspective before. He says, how would I think and feel if I were in his or her shoes? Will this matter in 5 years or in 5 weeks? And this is a great perspective, because if you've got a boss who upsets you on a regular basis, they may be under pressure. And what sorts of pressure are they in? And will this matter in 5 years? Well, if you can convince yourself in your mind that this isn't going to matter in a week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 5 years, why are you stressed about it now? So by changing the context and changing the parameters, you can actually reduce your stress. What would someone else do? Well, this is a good one. What if you were in a tough situation Now, he gives some comical examples. He said, what would Winnie the Pooh do? Or mom or dad. What would your favorite cartoon character do? I'm sure that would be a good exercise. Some of the cartoon characters you probably wouldn't want to do what they would do in that situation, but there's others that you could learn from. So thinking about it from that perspective and leaning on a mentor or somebody who's provided a good example in the past. Cycle fully focused work with 100% rest. Says this could be a solution if you're stressed today, but it's more important on a long-term solution to reduce levels of stress and to consistently put yourself into a better headspace to handle the inevitable setbacks and crises that will happen at work. So he talks about setting boundaries, having a start time and stop time for every day, a break every 45 minutes, no work on the weekends. That's a good one, right? I mean, if you can manage your time and plan out your day. Number 80 says, remember to keep things extremely simple. Says, here's a reminder that he's used more times than he can recall. Keep things simple. That's a good one. When you start to make things too complex, it can be extremely overwhelming. So simplification. Ask instead of guessing. Trying to mind read someone can quickly amplify stress, anxiety, and frustration. Yeah, I like this one. If you're with your boss and your boss gives you something to do, if you don't repeat back to the boss what you need to do, get confirmation, and rather were just to go start working on that particular activity, you might be building more into what the boss wants than what the boss actually wants. So if you're in a situation where you're feeling that level of stress increase, start asking the questions. Start playing back what you're hearing. Having that open dialogue is going to get the person asking for something to think through it, but also it's going to give you clarity. And when you have clarity, you are going to know what to focus on. He says, be 10 minutes early. That's a good tip. Reduce your to-do lists. That would be nice to do. Many times we do that through prioritization and determining which activities and which activities to do and which activities not to do. So I like that one. Give yourself a 15-minute laugh break. I don't know if I'd do that in the office, but I might go to a private place and do it. He also gives some other tips, such as going in nature, asking for help, and he's got a number of other tips that he suggests. So there you have it. Tips to staying calm under pressure. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about developing your strategy to stay calm. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. The show is My Strategy. We've still got a little bit of time to get in your thoughts. Send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And you can be entered into our weekly giveaway. It's a Visa gift card is the prize, and also a copy of my latest book. Right before the break, we were talking about secrets to staying calm. Talking a little bit about habits and strategies, things like breathing, the consequences, perspective, all those things we like to talk about when we're thinking about personal development and coming up with ways for us to make it through our days and our lives. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about developing your strategy. And on this show, we have a systematic approach. Now, there's many frameworks out there that you can use to develop our strategy. So this framework is one that I've put together, and it's really to kind of simplify the thinking and the thought process. We have it in 5 simple steps, and keep it to 1 page so that you don't get overly overwhelmed with the planning process, but can really just start to think about it from the perspective of, if I'm at a specific point, what is my next step? And it's circular. So the first one is awareness, where we want to think about our vision, our goals, what we want to achieve. So as we think about awareness and calmness, we need to be aware that being calmer in situations is something that we want to work on. It's something that aligns to our vision. It's something that's going to help us from a personal growth perspective. So that's number 1. So assuming that we are aware that this is something that will help us and aligns to our vision, great, we can move on to the second step in the process. And the second step is the assessments and analyze, whereby we have to assess the situation, which is our current situation. And if we do some analysis and it can help us figuring out where we are. So if you can figure out where you are from an assessment and analysis perspective, that is what is going to give us some actions and activities that we can start to use in our next step. That's all hopefully going to align to our strategy. So we're aware that being calmer on a daily basis is something we want to do. We're assessing and analyzing and determining, where we are. Are we somebody who sits in a meeting with our boss? The boss says something, we just fume, get extremely upset inside. We don't do our fight or flight, and we just let that stress build and build and build to the point where all day long you're just upset and you can't focus. We don't want to get into a situation like that, but there's many of you out there who do get into that habit of doing that. And so from that perspective, if you are, we now need to strategize and plan. And I think it's important for us to understand top performers are the ones who handle stress the best. There's neuroscience behind management of stress with regard to why our body responds the way that it does. There's also nutritional strategies that we can implement. So as we're starting to strategize and plan, I want you to think about this from the perspective of not only do we want to, think about some of our personal things that we can do, right? I can sit down with you and we can talk all day long about ways that you could approach situations. But it might be time for you to talk to a nutritionalist. It might be time for you to talk to somebody who is a sports psychologist, getting to the gym, getting physically active. You're not going to be able to solve all of these, become a calmer person by just changing one variable within the equation. There's multiple variables. And I think that's one of the challenges that many of us run into, is that we think that there's one thing we can do, or there's, certain strategies or a keyword or phrase. Well, that's not what this is about. It really is about finding the total solution. And the solution means that we not only have to apply, how we handle situations personally, but physically, you have to be ready to handle it. What if you were out, drinking the night before, you skip the breakfast meal, you come into the office a little bit late, and next thing you know, you're dehydrated, you're talking to your boss, and your boss pulls something like this. Well, of course you're going to get stressed out. You're dehydrated, you were drinking the night before, you skip the meal, you just don't have the energy that you need to stay calm. You could have a diet that's low in certain vitamins and minerals and irons and things. So all of this has an impact. So as we start to strategize and plan, think about those other elements beyond just thinking about it from a, how do I react in a specific situation? And finally, we can strategize and plan all day long, but if we don't implement it, which is our fourth step, we have to implement. We have to take the risk. If you feel that the diet is impacting you, get the nutritionalist. Don't go off and say, oh, well, John found this article that talks about eating red beans and cabbage, and that's going to help me. No, it's talking to a nutritionalist, finding somebody who can help you, who can assess where you are with regard to your body, with regard to your iron levels and other things, key elements that are important. Talk to your doctor. They have tests. These are the things that you can do from an assessment and analysis perspective to help you define your strategy. It's not good enough just to read an article on the web. It's not good enough to change one variable. There are a number of factors that have to come into a strategy, and that is why there's very few number of people who are very successful. But once they can identify and put all of these pieces together, it gives them a huge advantage over everybody else, and you too can have that advantage. Once you've implemented your plan, we need to evaluate the plan. You might do a month into your plan and find out that you're even more stressed. Well, why are you more stressed? You might have to go back to the assess and analyze. You might have to look back at those courses of actions. Not every tactic's going to work. If you do change your nutrition, it could impact another part of your life. So that is what building a strategy and a plan is all about. It's a systematic approach. It's going through these 5 steps. You might go to strategize and plan and find that you have to go back up to assess and analyze. You might be to assess and analyze and have a perfect course of action so you can just implement it. But that's what this is all about. It's the process of going through it and developing a strategy to help you become more calm. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about putting your plan in place. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be with you here today. Our radio show episodes are on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Well, today we've been talking about a very important topic. It's secrets to staying calm under pressure. And in case you missed this broadcast, you can go to iHeartRadio or Apple iTunes. And if you'd like to have something covered in the show, send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. Or give us a call at 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. And I do want to remind you, you only have a few more minutes left to get in your email. But if you do get it in, you're going to be entered into the weekly giveaway where you'll get a chance to win a Visa gift card and a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness. Today we've been talking about a very interesting subject from my perspective. We've been talking about staying calm under pressure, which is not easy to do. We learned today that the top performers do have strategies and ways to keep calm, and those who are able to do that typically are more successful. We learned also that stress is extremely needed to help us grow our brain cells, but prolonged stress wreaks havoc on our minds and our bodies. Too much stress can cause heart disease, depression, obesity, and it can decrease your cognitive abilities, which is something we don't want to do. So it is very important for us to find ways to deal with stress, to become a calmer person in dealing with certain situations, maybe all situations. So we talked a little bit about the neuroscience behind calmness. We learned about the biochemistry and how it is a natural fight or flight response that causes us to be a little bit stressed. We also learned that since we cannot fight or flight in personal situations, in office situations, that our bodies go into this feedback loop and we don't know what to do, which can cause more stress and anxiety. So we learned a couple of tips where we had to label our emotions, slow our breathing, then relabel those emotions to something positive rather than something negative. We also learned about nutrition, and that nutrition plays a huge role in anxiety, which leads to us not being calm. We talked about a balanced diet, the importance of hydration, the impact of caffeine, the impact of alcohol on us. Talked about anti-anxiety diets. And as we started to go through the process and thinking about what it is that we could change within our lives to help be more calm, have we really considered our diet? Is that something we thought about? I think it's something you should consider. It's something that we should at least try, right? If you're in a situation where you're not getting ahead at work, you're stressed out, the boss makes you just want to pull all your hair out, and you don't know how to handle it, why not try nutrition? Why not learn more about what you're doing and why this is happening? And from there, we then went into the secrets to staying calm and learned about some habits and strategies. Things like breathing, consequences, it's not about you, putting things in perspective. What would someone else do, and keep things simple? Well, from our perspective, keeping things simple can help, but also changing the context, thinking about it from a different perspective. Would this matter in 5 years or 2 weeks or 3 weeks? All of those are strategies that you can use today to help this not be as big of an impact to you. And as a result of that, you can be more calm. And it all comes down to breaking habits, which means you need to be aware of them and consciously reprioritize. Well, that's all the time we have for today. So happy to be here with you today. Glad you could join us. We'll see you next time.